Rev up your engines. All right, today's problem is this truck vibrates 30 to 40 miles an hour. And it's not just the steering wheel, it's the whole truck, especially when it's towing something. Now, it's a big old 3500, and it is four-wheel drive with a dually in the back. Now, the first thing, if you get vibration, you want to look at the tires. This is a dually, and you can see this tire's got a lot more tread than this tire. This one's kind of bulged and run it out. On the other side, same thing. You can see this tire's worn out in the middle. The inside one, it's actually bulging too. And as we look at the front tire, it's normal wear. Look at the other side, and it's worn about the same too. Now, it's my grandson's truck, and he's worried because he uses the tow, and it has a problem when it's towing. Right away when I asked him, is it the steering wheel that shakes? And he said no. The whole vehicle shakes 30 to 40 miles an hour when he's got a heavy load. He's got a gigantic trailer. He was towing somebody else's truck out to Kentucky, and he noticed that 30 to 40, the whole thing's kind of shaking around. On that problem, the front end is going to be shaking, and the steering wheel is going to be doing most of the shaking, not the whole body. So we're going to take it for a road test without the weight on it and see what happens. Not doing anything odd yet. I can feel it even going straight. This is a pretty non-bumpy road. I drive in this road all the time. It's a very smooth road, yet the vehicle is bouncing up and down. Now, I know the shocks are worn, but since this is a straight stretch of road, it's the tires in the back that are bouncing it around. You can really feel it now when we hit some dips. The whole body of the vehicle, you can see, the whole body of the vehicle was shaking. There we go. Feel it shaking? And this is on a smooth road. Now, I know the shocks are worn out. This is an old vehicle. It's got really old shocks on it. They're going to have to be changed at some point in time. We'll try to replicate it again. There it goes. Feel it bouncing? It's bouncing like crazy. The whole thing's shaking up and down on a smooth road. And when you hit the bumps, it's even worse. If you do hit a bump, then it really starts doing a right shake, rattle right there. It's doing the shake, rattle, and roll there. So as it stands with my present analysis, it definitely needs new tires, especially in the back on those dualies. And it also needs shocks. The tires are giving it bounciness, but when you hit bumps, it's 5 times worse. Just by themselves, the tires are giving it some jiggly. When you do hit bumps, it goes bananas. So it's going to need shocks and at least rear tires. Now, one of the clues is that it's worse when he's towing. Well, when you're towing a vehicle, or in this case, a giant trailer bed with a vehicle driven on it, there's a whole bunch of weight. So the biggest stress point is the back tires and the back suspension. So let's crawl under here and take a look. As you can see, the inner tire's worn down to the wear bars. They're all down out, and they're kind of out around. And the other side's the same way. So dually, you can see it's got really heavy duty leaf springs, both sides. They're heavy duty. And that's one of the reasons that when you got the big old trailer on the back, pulling a vehicle on top of it, it acts the worst of the vibrating, because then all that extra weight is pushing down on those springs, straining them more, and the worn out shocks in the back are going to act up more. Without all that weight on the tongue, it's okay, the back isn't too squashed, but with all that weight, it's being squashed down, which strains the whole suspension in the back, so any problem that exists, like a worn shock, is going to be accentuated when you're towing something heavy. Now, my grandson's cheap, so he didn't want to spend money. So I would say, as you can see, he's lucky because this doesn't have the fancy selectable one with electronics. These are just regular old shock absorbers, bolts on the back and bolts on the top. Very simple job to replace. As they do wear out, that's why you get the shaking back and forth of the whole vehicle. Like I said, if it was a front end problem, the steering wheel would be shaking, but this is the whole vehicle going back and forth, which is accentuated by the kind of crazy design that this has. Most vehicles, each side of a shock or strut, and they'll be in the same position, pointed straight up or whatever. This has got one pointed one way, one pointed the other. So when they do go bad, you're going to get a rocking motion that you wouldn't normally get, that'll be really accentuated when those are worn, and when the weight of a trailer's on it, it's really straining it. So then when you get to a certain speed, it just starts rocking back and forth. Now, of course, galloped, worn out tires aren't helping it any, but the main problem is the shocks in the back are worn out. All the weight of a trailer here, it's going like this. One's pointed that way, one's pointed that way. They're both worn out, so it's going to teeter more. The old-fashioned bounce on it, right? Push on it, see if it bounces. It doesn't bounce, right? But in this case, it doesn't mean diddly squat, because those leaf springs are so thick, they're so strong, that it's not really being stressed, and you put the weight of a trailer back there pulling another vehicle. Then it's stressed. You just pushing it, you're not going to notice anything. Those springs are so thick and heavy, it's not going to do anything until there's a ton of weight on it, or the vehicle driving down the road. This thing's a heavy vehicle, right? And that'll make it go while you're bouncing down the road, but you pushing isn't going to do anything. It's not like the coil springs on my Celica. You can easily push them and see it bounce a little bit. They're not worn out, but you can bounce it. You can't do it on that truck. The leaf springs are too thick. You can see these gigantic springs here. You can't push on them. You gotta have all the weight of a trailer and a vehicle going down the road before it's gonna really start showing you whether the shocks are bouncy or not. Now, when he told me what it was doing is shaking 30 to 40. I thought, oh, is it the steering wheel? He said, no, it's the old vehicle. I thought, oh man, the transmission's going out. Hey, it's an old truck. There it is, you can see it better. 89,096 miles. So even though it's 19 years old, it wasn't used that much, which does make sense, because when you look under the hood, you got a monster V8, which is 8.1 liters. That is a giant engine. Great for towing, but not so great for gas mods. These things are gas hogs. They use gasoline like no tomorrow. So you're not going to use this as an everyday driver. You're going to use it when you got to tow and pull stuff. Hence, in 19 years, it only had 89,000 miles put on it. Now you might very well ask, well, how come it does that shaking at 30 to 40, but it doesn't do it at like 70 miles an hour? Well, the faster you go, the more that'll counteract any problem with the shocks being worn and making it want to wobble around, because that's a stabilizing force. When this is spinning fast, and of course the other side, all that energy is going to make it more stable. But when it's going slower, you're going to get the wobbling back and forth. He can put the shocks on himself. He doesn't need the tires, but to him that's more of a secondary thing. He's often driven around in vehicles that had pretty bald tires on them. Now, as you can see back at his house, he does have a gigantic trailer that he pulls. Here's his runaround Camry my son gave him. Look at these bald tires. He will ride around on bald tires. There's no arguing that. You can feel these things going lumpa just sitting there. It doesn't need to be pulling anything. It's so worn out that it's just going lumpa by itself. Now, you might very much ask, why did he get that giant Chevy when he had his Toyota Tundra V8 that he'd been using to tow things? Well, he didn't want to wear the Tundra out anymore, and the Tundra's got almost 300,000. Well, this baby's got only 89,000 miles on it, and he got a good deal on it. And of course, with the 8.1 liter V8 engine, this is much better for towing than the Tundra's heavy loads, because you can see he pulls this giant trailer and fills those up with vehicles. So there's an awful lot of weight, and really, sad but true, the 3500 with that big giant V8 engine is better for pulling, especially with those dually wheels if he gets stuck anywhere. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Fig Tree 44 says, I have PO126 engine temperature low in my Mazda CX-5 2020. I noticed that I drove it for half an hour. It still didn't get the operating temperature. Took it to the dealer. They said there's nothing wrong. Of course, they had it running inside the heated bay. Bought this car 4 years ago. It always got higher operating temperature. You just need a thermostat. And that shows you the idiots that work at a dealership. If you have operating temperature too low, there's only two things that can be wrong. One is your temperature sensor's bad, so the computer says the operating temperature's too low, right? But if it's not that, it is your thermostat stuck open. And as you found out, if you operate it in a heated garage, it's hot enough in the garage that the temperature will go up. But if you're outside and it's, 10 degrees outside, the temperature won't get high enough and it'll get low operating temperature code. They're idiots. They should have just put a thermostat on the thing. That shows you went to a dealership. That shows you how poorly trained and how ignorant the mechanics are that work at some of those places, that they couldn't do a simple thing like that. Just have the thermostat replaced. Watch my my videos, you could do it yourself. 2 bolts on and off. Simple to do. I can't believe that they were that stupid to do. Well, actually, I can't. They'll hire anybody these days because nobody wants to be mechanics and work for a dealership where they might charge you $150 an hour labor, but they're paying the mechanic $17.50 an hour to fix the car, and they're pocketing the rest themselves. So, of course, it leads to nobody wants to work there for peanuts. People they do get don't know what the heck they're doing because they're not paying them enough, and they're keeping all the money for themselves because they're greedy. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.